On page Nun Aleph Amud Beis. It's the fifth parak. So we're going to do the parak. Right. Well, it's almost close enough. So right. Here we are. So if but once again, it's a short parak, and I thought it would just kind of a little bit offset what we've done. Right. We just ran through the Mishnah. Okay. Right. So first of all, the topic of the parak is really about having animals who go out. Who you put things on them which either they may be carrying or it may be excessive or may not be needed, and they're going outside the house, and two things could happen. Either it could fall off, right, or second of all, it may be considered for the animal itself a masui, a carry, something that's carrying. Now, there's nothing wrong, let's put it the other way, these are really all rabbinic prohibitions. There's nothing wrong with an animal walking out and doing things on its own. The animal doesn't have to sit at the Shabbos table, animal doesn't have to come to Kriyas Torah, animal doesn't have to have a Shabbos nap, right? In fact, the animal would be wrong to stop the animal from grazing and cutting the grass to eat, right? Whatever the pasture would be. So clearly when it says Laman Yanuach Shorcha V'Chamorcha, that your ox and your donkey will rest, it's not the same kind of rest that refers to you. However, one of the corollary concerns is the fact that the animal, if the animal's extra objects are being carried, they're carrying it for you. And second of all, these objects may fall off and you may end up carrying it as well. So I actually just wanted to give you a little short handout to get us into this. And it's the bottom half of the page. The top half of the page we get to, it'll be towards the end, okay? But the bottom half of the page in the English, which says resting livestock, okay? So just so we understand the significance of it, it's not a Torah level prohibition, it's more rabbinic level according to most commentaries. Pnei Yoshua explains, having one of the animals go out in the public domain with a particular equipment listed is only a rabbinic violation of Shabbos. Torah only forbids a person from arranging that his animal does an activity such as plowing or carrying packages that are forbidden for a person to do due to their being laborious. So I can't have an animal plow, I can't have an animal schlep for me on Shabbos, but the Pnei Yoshua reinforces opinion by pointing out that it's permitted to have one's animal graze on grass on Shabbos. He cites the verse in Shmos, right? Shmos Yom HaShvi Yelchem Shabboson, you'll stay with work, L'man Yanuach the Rashi comments, L'man Yanuach, let the animal be at ease. The verse is hereby permitting the animal to pluck and eat grass from the ground. To confine the animal to remain indoors would be the cause it to have pain, and not to be at ease. Therefore, it's not a Torah violation for an animal to walk in the public domain with decorative or ornamental accessories, just as it would be permitted for the animal to be loaded with the equipment necessary to guard that's not going to run away and be in danger. So really, these are all more rabbinic things that were there, and there are many opinions in the Rishonim that clearly hold that the idea of having an animal carry items, however, could be a Torah prohibition. So it is machlokas. It appears to be more logical, though, that it probably seems to be more of a rabbinic prohibition.
The idea was, I think, that the animal shouldn't work for you. That's the idea, right?
Correct. Yep. Okay. So it's the question whether it does relate to a pasuk or not, but most likely it does relate more rabbinically to an extension of it. Okay, Bameh Behema Yotza. This is the Mishnah in the middle of the page, and I brought with me a little Mishnayos that has pictures here. Okay, so we have a general. Maybe I should copy that. It's okay, you can see it. Bameh Behema Yotza V'Ma'in Yotza. What can a animal go out with, and on Shabbos, and what can an animal not go out with? And once again, if it's something that's going to protect it, right, it's permissible. It's something that you needed to pull it. In the same way that if it's raining, you're going to wear a raincoat. Right? If it's you wear clothing not only for style, you wear clothing for protection. You wear clothing also as accessories, right? But sometimes, and we don't really say for people. Actually, it's not really true. The sixth parak talks about women's accessories. So, but as a general rule, no one really finds an issue here with wearing accessories and jewelry for people on Shabbat. Okay. So we have a couple of animals here, okay, and these are the animals that people dealt with. Yotza Hagamal Biafsar. So a camel can go out with a halter. This is a halter. What would we call this? I think it goes around the horse's head. Bridle. Call it a bridle. Okay, bridle. So they're using. So this is the opposite. So they're using this on the camel,
and the bit here.
The bit's the one goes in your mouth.
So I don't think it's the bit, because you'll see they're going to talk about the bit.
Ring. They see bit, and then they go for dromedary.
Well, I didn't get up to the dromedary yet. I just got up to the camel.
The camel.
The camel's a regular standard issue camel. This is your Chevrolet camel.
Whatever a halter is.
One hump. One hump.
The same as a halter.
Right, a halter, correct? Okay. So this is called the opposite. Just remember the words. A naka is a female dromedary, which both has two humps and is also apparently was more aggressive as the female for some reason, or ornery, I don't know. And this type of camel, this naka, required a chotam. A chotam comes from the nose. It was a metal nose ring that was put into the animal's nose. That's why I don't think this is a bit. This is simply a halter. The regular camel's a halter to be able to hold it, to be able to pull it. Right?
He has this thing going right through the animal's jaw, I guess, or nose.
Nose. It's through the nose. They would actually drill through the septum.
That thing here,
drill through the septum. It probably is not as painful as you think, Archie. It's like wearing.
No, that may be true, but it gives me the creeps.
Well, but you have to remember, wearing nose rings in the ancient world was considered proper dress, was a proper accessory. So this is the problem here. Is this was non-removable for the camel, but the camel, it's like a bit. I can't imagine that wearing a bit, having a bit in your mouth is any pleasant either. No. Okay? So at any rate, you realize that the naka with the nose ring is a much more serious attempt to control the camel.
Right.
Okay? A luvdicus is a prumbaya, and that's really, that's more like the bit itself. The luvdicus is this kind of Lubian donkey, and a prumbaya here, this is what they show the prumbaya to be. I don't know, looks like it's got teeth holes. Is that what bit's really made of?
Bits are made of.
I never saw that.
They say here a band placed around the animal's neck. To this band is affixed a ring into which one inserts a rope or strap by which the animal is led.
You sure that's a prumbaya?
It doesn't sound like
Maybe that's the first one.
No, it's not a pumbaya.
I don't know.
Prumbaya,
right?
Rashi says it's going to explain the Gemara, but I'm just telling you what it's going to be.
No, that's the sus-bashir. I apologize.
Okay, we're going to get to that yet. Okay, so the prumbaya is a bit, and this by the way is a very specialized kind of hard-working, kick in the rear mule that, or actually it's a donkey that needs a very specialized kind of piece of equipment. That's a bit. The bit that they're showing here in this picture, and I don't know if it's really correct or not, seems to have cutouts for where the teeth are, so it really would hold the animal. If you yank the bit, right, the animal would want to come with you and not give you a kickback. The bit, I believe today, that we normally see in horses does go through the mouth.
Yes,
right?
definitely goes through the mouth.
Right, it goes right through the back of the jaw.
Exactly.
Okay, but it doesn't go really around the teeth, so it's maybe less drastic. I don't know either. Okay, then the last one is a sus. But anyway, Rashi tells us we're going to see this in the Gemara. The fourth animal is a sus. Bashira. Shira is simply a collar. A collar is it's meant to be like a metal collar. So somehow it just goes around the neck. I'm not sure if they have a picture here. We have an sus collar here. Sus Bashir. Yeah. So they have just simply your standard collar that goes around the horse's neck. This looks like a chain around the neck. Okay, it doesn't get off the horse because it's tight, right? So the horse can't pull it over its head. And it is not a bit. It is not a bridle. It is not a halter. Horses were considered much more docile than donkeys and camels. Okay? And so that's what...
According to the only thing he adds here, it's the kind of thing that you don't have to take it off the neck. So I guess a permanent sort of thing you can leave there.
Right, correct. That's right. So in other words...
When they camp, we take the stuff off.
Right, correct. And we'll see that because the end of the mission talks about whether you can tovel an animal with wearing this kind of collar. So it looks like it's something that didn't come off very easily. So it's got, by the way, you'll see from the Gemara that it's got to be loose enough that it's got to be tight enough it'll stay on the animal, and loose enough that it's going to be able to sprinkle it with the paraduma waters, or put the animal actually into the mikveh, and water will get underneath it. Right, getting under your collar. There you go. So that's v'sus b'shir v'chol balei ashir, and all the other animals which wear the shear. And Rashi says here's where the dog comes in. The other animals we're talking about are klavim, tsayadim. These are hunting dogs. Okay, Rashi was acquainted with hunting dogs. It probably was one of the major uses of dogs. And v'chayot ketanot, Rashi says smaller types of wild animals, If you can think of, well, the Gemara will say it actually is a cat, but it could be something like a weasel or a marten or something like that. So shenotnim shilot savram. So a shear is, once again, this is a simple collar that goes around, and we'll see exactly what that is. And yotza, and the Mishnah says yotzim b'shir v'nimshachim b'shir. They go out with the collar and they're led by the collar. Now the Gemara will talk about what exactly that means. They're led and they're pulled by the collar. So let's see. They have a picture here. No, don't have a picture. So in other words, they either can walk, they either are pulled by the collar, that's clear, or they go out with the collar, and the collar is there, probably around the rest of the body. And that could be there maybe for an accessory, or it could be there so that you can yank the animal if you need to. So it either may be, in other words, a free-standing collar that's wrapped back on the animal, may be also permissible to be done, because it's a way that you would normally be able to control the animal. Okay? So Rashi, by the way, says that they're putting some of these things as for noi. For the collars was also, I guess, had some type of accessories built onto it that they look pretty. Then the last thing is umazim aleim v'tovlim b'mkomam. And this Mishnah says, and this is really unrelated to Shabbos at all, that they could actually, first of all, they could sprinkle the animal or sprinkle the collar with the waters of the parah aduma if the collar became tamei mace was contaminated with tamei mace, and also they could actually immerse the animal wearing the collar. And they show you here this picture here. Once again, the animal is going underwater holding the collar. The animal is being sprinkled by the Kohen, who's dressed in his typical Kohen garb. The Kiddush is you don't have to take off the collar in order to do this.
Right. So an animal is subject to the laws of Tumun Tahar?
Yeah, sure. Animals were immersed in the mikvah. I believe, and I'm quite sure this is a distinct memory I have as a young person when I went to Israel. If you come in the Lion's Gate, I don't know, I haven't been there since 1972, 73, so I'm hoping it's still there. But if you come in the Lion's Gate, there's a church right on the right side. I don't know whose church it is.
Which is the Lion's Gate?
Lion's Gate is the gate where the paratroopers came in the 6-Day War.
Not the Shar Yafo, the one that we...
No, not Shar Yafo, not the Dung Gate. It's the other side where the cemetery is for the Arab cemetery.
I don't know where that is.
Right. You probably will never go into it, okay, because you end up in Arab Jerusalem, okay? That's what I'm saying. 1972, you could still go. 72, 73, you could go in. But there is this church, and in the church courtyard, I remember because I went with a guidebook, and there was this big old pool, like one of these pools that goes back, and it's believed that was a pool that the animals were immersed in before they were taken up to Har HaBayit. They didn't go into the same mikvahs that the people went into, which you do have on the side of the Dung Gate. As you go up to where those gates are that are sealed, right on the southwest side, the south side. So there are a number of mikvos that we have found, little mikvos that apparently the pilgrims would use. So and in other places in the city, but this was actually a much larger kind of thing. Of this as a large Olympic kind of swimming pool, which they would use for the animals. I guess that's how they would do it.
These are kosher mikvahs for the animals. It's kosher.
There was a kosher mikvah, yeah. Think of throwing your dog in the pool or something.
No.
Yeah, okay, that's only on a much larger scale. Okay. So I can see the reality of what was done. So yes, this was done, and look, whatever kind of collar it had, they didn't have to take it off to immerse the animal in the mikvah. So even the animals had to be tahar before they were taken up to Har HaBayit. Well, we don't normally talk about this, but you think about it for a moment, it's just like so axiomatic. If you had to be tahar, the animal had to be tahar. Okay.
Probably not everybody brought their animals up, right? So yeah.
No, it was not you were bringing it was bringing the animals to be slaughtered.
Right, yeah.
The animals to be slaughtered. Not bring your pet to work. Not bring your pet to the temple day.
The korbanos.
It's all korbanos.
The korbanos.
So it was like...
How does it become tamei? Comes into contact with a dead body. It comes into contact with the sheretz. A dead human body. Yeah, I guess I don't know. Maybe everything that was tamei. So it comes into contact with a lot of things that are out there in the field. Maybe you assume automatically the animal is going to be tamei, and they had to immerse it. Again.
But you only do this for kosher animals.
For animals being brought up to Har HaBayit to be slaughtered.
That are going to be
slaughtered and brought for the mizbeach.
So, but you don't give you don't slaughter a sus or a donkey or a camel.
Correct. That's true. So it would not be. So the picture of the animal may have been. I'm not sure why they're using a sus. Maybe if the animal was tamei and it touched you, you'd become tamei. I'm not clear. Okay, it's a good question. It's an excellent question. All right, or maybe the pictures just simply give you an example of an animal.
Well, Rashi says to toivel the collar, not the animal.
Right. So correct. So Rashi is saying that's correct. So Rashi says, thank you. Mazim alem b'mkomam kamo shehem b'tzavar b'hemem nitmu. Now, who became tamei? So I think the tzavar with tovlim b'mkomam, and you're toveling the animal to tovel the shear. So that clearly talks about being tovel the animal in order to make the collar tahar. So if the collar, which is a metal kind of utensil, that became tamei, and you wanted to remain tar, I guess that would be an example where you'd have to do it. So thank you, Ralph. That's a better interpretation. Thank you for correcting us. Okay, so that would be any kind of animal. If you were very careful about being tahar, and your animal got in contact with something that made it tamei. Good.
Would they automatically bring that animal to this mikveh if they're going to slaughter?
For harabayit,
Is that automatic?
for a sac, I believe so. Yes.
So how would that? I mean,
How'd that work?
Unless you say it's a miracle, you've got millions of literally.
Yeah, you have an assembly line. Correct.
How do you do that in one day?
You do it in one day. You continue to do one after the other.
No, but you got to lead the animal. You got a whole line.
Yeah, you have a lot of.
How many do you have? You have like,
Well, I only know of this one very large one that I saw in 1972-73, but it was actually it's an extremely large pool. Once again, I'm going back now. That's a long time ago, 72-73, but I do recall seeing this overgrown, humongously large pool, and not knowing exactly what it was, and then taking out my guidebook and reading what they said it was.
but you bring in.
Yeah,
You could be bringing 3 animals. Each family.
yes, you could.
They're usually small. They usually must have been goats. Must have been the most of them.
You got to line up.
So the answer is, remember, they don't have to be made tahar on the day you slaughter them. They could be brought and be left stockpiled up on the harabayit too.
Okay.
So you're right, but the answer is yes. There was a lot, and there were times that the place was extremely busy. Think of going to Sobeys on the night before Pesach or whatever it is.
They just
Right.
herd them through under a few seconds each one.
Yes, correct. I think that's what I said. I think they had an assembly line process. Think of, for example, when they slaughtered all the korban pesachs. So it's hard to imagine, right? But you have to each of the karbanos had the blood was sprinkled on the altar, which to our minds, by the way, in a Western society with sensitivities, just stands out. All this blood flying around, right? But the Mishnah tells us they had the Kohanim lined up like a fireman's brigade, and they would slaughter it, they would catch the blood in the utensil, and they'd pass it down, keep passing it down.
The original assembly line.
It was the fireman's brigade passing the bucket down to put out the fire. Only at the end they sprinkled the blood on the altar. So there was a process. It was a massive process, and I guess you do it year after year, day after day. It becomes fairly smooth, or as smooth as possible. Yeah. So it was much different than we are used to seeing. Okay. Okay, so that's really what the Mishnah tells us, and as we pointed out, this is really about animals and what they need to be carrying in order to protect them, or in order to be an accessory for them, or in order to make sure that we can lead them and keep control of them. So one of the questions, by the way, will be that, of course, if it's something that's flimsy, the animal will not be. I won't be able to hold on to the animal. Right. What about if I do overkill? If I can ever give the animal too much of a protection? Let's say instead of putting on a collar on an animal, I put on the bit. Right. This is going to be a discussion we're going to come to in a few minutes. It's called netirusa yeserta. Extra netira means watching. Extra control. So if I don't need it and I do it, maybe it's really considered the animal's carrying or I'm carrying it. Okay, so let's go through the Gemara. My naka b'chotam. So we talked about this dromedary, this female dromedary. That.
One question.
Yeah.
They dip the animal all the way down.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Imagine you're going to force this thing that doesn't want to go down, push him in there, and you know what I mean? Like
it's like forcing an animal to get slaughtered. Yes. Okay.
No, but I'm saying like they don't want it.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. But I know cowboys had corrals and cowboys had cattle. What do you call it? Cattle marches, and the cows didn't really want to go either.
Yeah.
So yes, you got to be a cowboy. No, I'm saying yes. The part of yes, it is.
They do it now. You have cattle dips.
Cattle dips.
Yeah, for medicine.
Cattle dips, right, to get rid
For
of
medicine. Hoof and mouth is a medicine or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they put them in a chat. They walk and they force.
This
them
is
to go.
while the animal is developing or before they slaughter it.
No,
no,
we're like
hold
medical.
Keep the animal.
Basically, if animals get infected,
Yeah, some kind of
they
infection.
take it. They've got like a crow which goes down into concrete,
Yeah.
basically mikveh, and they
Pool.
take the animal. It drops. The animal drops right down, so it goes.
It has like a disinfectant, whatever, like thing
Okay.
to cure it, like okay.
Okay. So it's done. You want to know what's more complicated than dipping an animal into a pool? Taking a child and doing a conversion and putting the child underwater. Okay, that is extremely difficult because the parents are in the mikveh to help the child, and the parent has to leave go, and the kid goes under in a free fall. Okay, now you try that. Well, don't try it. But I'm saying, but that is probably a lot more complex. It's not complex in terms of weight, but complex in terms of making sure it's done properly. Okay, so there we go. So let's go to our Gemara. So yeah, the answer is it is very complicated, but it was done, and we believe it can be done. Not my naka. So we had seen that the gamal goes with an afsar, the naka goes with a chota. My naka b'chota, mama rabba barbachana, nakasa chiyurta. A nakasa is a dromedary, chiyurta is white. Bizmama the parzala with a metal. Parzla is barzel, a metal nose ring. Okay, so that's the proper way to kind of hold on to this female double-humped camel. Velubdicus bepumbaya. Okay, lubdicus we told you already was this kind of donkey that comes from Luv. Amrav Huna, what is this? Chamra luba bifage de parzla. It's a chamor from Luba. Tosu says that's Mitzrayim. Another name for Mitzrayim was Luv, or maybe some other place, and they put a bit into the mouth. Okay,
Next door to Mitzrayim, it's called Libya. Louvre today.
maybe.
Libya, it's out.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, we'll look up Nahum chapter 3 for next week. The pasuk is Put velubis. Okay, Put velubim. Hayu bezrascha. How they translate, if they translate that as Egypt and Egypt, because Put actually is Egypt too. So Levi shadar zuzah lebei chuzai. So Levi wanted to get one of these Libyan kind of donkeys. So he sent money to Bei Chuzai. Now Bei Chuzai is a place that's far away from the mainstream of Bavel. And Rashi says that it's like a half a year travel to get to Bei Chuzai. It doesn't mean that it's that far, but I guess if you're traveling with animals and you're schlepping, it's going to take a long period of time. So he sent money to Bei Chuzai, and he went to bring Lemizben Le Chamaluba, to bring him back to buy for himself this Chamra Luba, this what we call here this Lubdicus. Okay, so Tsaru, they wrapped up Shadru Le Sare, and they took his money. When he sends a pile of money to buy this donkey. This was a specialized kind of donkey he wanted to get. And they take his money, and instead of sending him back a donkey, Shadru Le Sare, they send him back a pile of barley. And what they were saying, these people do things in strange ways. They don't write letters; they send symbols. Leimeimar, as if to say, "Denigra de chamre sare," that the walking of a chamor is equal to the amount of barley that the chamor is going to eat. The chamor, when army rides on its stomach, this chamor rides on its barley. So if you want to get back a chamra luva, you got to make sure that you can pay the freight. Okay, the freight would be a very high fee. You've got to pay because you got to feed this donkey all along. So what they were saying, it's prohibitively expensive for you to purchase this. You gave us the worth of the chamor, but it's going to cost many, many times more just to ship it and have someone schlep it back with you. So don't even try. Stick with your local venue of chamorim. So that's the case. Okay, now Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. Okay, so this is goes back to our Mishnah. So okay. Lamed Aleph from Beis. Okay, Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So Rav Yehuda said the name of Shmuel. I just want you to pay attention that this is being said by Shmuel, because this will come back to us a little bit later. Machlifin lefnei Rebbe shalzu bezu. They asked Rebbe, or in front of Rebbe, they asked the question. They didn't trick each other. Machlifin means to switch. Now, what are they switching? So it means, what would happen if you were to switch one of the items from what's supposed to be with animal A, you tried with animal B. So let's just give you the examples very quickly. We said that the regular gamal goes with an afsar, which is a halter, right?
Right.
And or the bridle, as you want to call it. The nakeh goes with the chotem, with the steel thing in the nose ring. What if you wanted to flip things around? You put the nose ring into the regular gamal, and you put a regular halter onto this wild dromedary. Is that going to be chayav or pater on Shabbos? Mahu, what's it going to be? Naka ba'as. So the Gemara says like this: Naka ba'as b'lo tiboilach. It's not a question. If you had a dromedary, and instead of putting the steel nose ring, what did you do? You put on a halter. Is that more or less of what you normally think it should have?
This is less.
It's going to be less. So that instead of putting the steel ring in its nose, which is definitely going to hold on to it, you kind of put a bridle around its head, which doesn't hold it as tight. So clearly that's not going to be a case of anything excessive. If now you may say the camel may run away. That'll be your problem. Okay, but whatever the case was that you decide to flip things around. So that's not a question. I'm sorry, it's the other way around. My mistake, okay? I got it backwards. Nakabas bar lo tiboilach. There's no question, actually is aser. Kaven lo mintrabe masuhir. Seeing it really doesn't protect the animal. I'm sorry, I flipped it around the wrong way. It doesn't really protect it. It serves no purpose. Masuhir. It's simply an extra thing the animal is carrying, and therefore is not considered normal type of protection, normal type of accessory, normal type of device.
So we're agreeing that it's easier, but it's just not
because
effective.
it's easier, it's not effective.
Right.
It's not effective. Now, there's some things may be a little bit of wiggle room. Apparently, in this case, though, if you had this dromedary, if you didn't tie its nose in or put the steel in its nose, it was going to bolt. So, kiti boilach, where's the question? Gamal b'chotem. Now, this is the other way around. What if you had a gamal, and instead of putting on it the halter, which is sufficient, you put on it the nose ring, which is really overkill? You put that steel nose ring in forever, and now you want to take it throughout on Shabbos. Kavan the sagale ba'afsar masohu. Do we say, seeing that this camel would be sufficient with a halter, so now that you put the extra nose ring, it's not really a protection, it's a masoh, therefore the excess is now going to be considered, it's excessively carrying material it does not need, because it could have gone away with something much lighter and much featherweight. No, we say, you know what, it's effective, yes it is more, but you know what, sometimes too much is going to be just what you want. In other words, it's better to put on too much than to put on too little. Right? It's like putting on, you can think of the example yourself. You want to put a higher fence rather than put up a lower fence. So you say the higher fence is too high, well, better than the choice is one or the other, I'd rather put up the higher fence. So, or we say, no, extra carrying is not considered masui. It's a protection for the animal. That's what you need to control the animal. So, who asked this question again? So, Shmuel, Rabbi Yehuda asked in the name of Shmuel, that Rabbi Yehuda said that Shmuel said that we asked Rabbi about flipping back and forth. So, Amr Lefanav, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi. So, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi answered in front of Rabbi, to whom? To Shmuel. Remember, has Rebbe responded yet? He's standing quietly. So far, Rebbe plays a very cameo silent piece here. That's going to be important. Kach Omar Abba. So Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi said, this is what my father said. Who's Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi's father? Rabbi Yossi. Okay, the famous Rabbi Yossi, one of the students of Rabbi Akiva. Okay. So this is already the generation afterwards. This is Rebbe, which is about 100 years after Rabbi Akiva, let's say. So this is his son is there talking about what his father would have said. Kachamar Abba, this is what my father said. Arba behemos yotzos ba'avsar. 4 animals on Shabbos can be taken out with the halter around. What are they? We only had one in our Mishnah. Which one did we have? Gamal, right? But here are the 4. Sus is a horse, Pered is a mule, Gamal, and a Chamor is a donkey. So the 4 of these animals, not the donkey from Levuv, a regular donkey, you can take them out with a Afsar on Shabbos, and that's proper the way to take them, and it's not considered a Masui. So wait. So this is the only first half of the statement. What do we say? So therefore, he's answering to Shmuel in terms of what was he want to know about flipping the other ones. What do we think? How does he learn this? So just let's place. My love, lemute gamal b'chotem. So we have all these 4 animals can be taken out with an afsar. So what are we excluding? If we leave these 4 animals, can go with an avsar.
What's her name? That woman.
So So the Gemara thinks we're
Do we have the naka?
well, that's going to be the answer, actually. So the Gemara, the first things, maybe are we excluding? Should we not exclude the gamal with the chotem? That you put in the extra kind of device, the heavy duty nose ring on the gamal. That, in other words, the 4 means to say these 4 can only go out with an avsar, which means if you were to put on an extra heavy netirusa yaterta, it's not going to be permissible because netirusa yaterta is going to be considered a masui. That's the Gemara says my lav lemute gamal b'chotem. So the Gemara says no, not true. Lo lemute naka ba'avsar. So it's actually not true. Says this is the discussion going back and forth there between Rabbi Yossi in front of Shmuel. Says no, it actually this may be Shmuel answering. It comes to exclude the nakabav, so that if you have the dromedary and you put the avsar, which is insufficient, that you cannot go out on Shabbos, right? But really, if you had something too heavy, that would be okay. So the conclusion, in other words, we thought that maybe we're excluding something that's working too heavy. Not true. We're excluding something that's working not heavy enough. Which means at this point, it looks like that if you put on something that is too strong for the animal, it's good. It's okay. Thank you. It's okay. You can take it out on Shabbos. Okay, now once again, remembering who seems to, the people associated with this looks like to be Shmuel is the one you have to keep in mind. So it looks like Shmuel will be agreeing to this. Correct? Because he was the one he asked, and this is the response he got. Now Shmuel doesn't, we don't know really what he responded. We know what Shmuel Bar Yossi said. We don't know what Rebbe really said, but this is how we take it at this point. Okay, so that looks like at this point that it looks to be that Netirusa Yeterta is considered a good Netirusa for Shabbos, and you can carry the animal out, even though it is extra kind of material. We don't say the extra material is overload.
Extra protection.
It's extra protection. Okay, so the Gemara says Ketanoi. So the Gemara says actually it's a machlokas tanoim. Okay? And we're going, I'm sorry, I skipped the line. My mistake, I skipped the line. B'masnisa tana, we have a brisa that says luvdikis v'gamal yotzim ba'afsar. So that a luvdikis, which is that wild donkey, and a gamal can go out with an afsar on Shabbos. Okay, and
what did we have before for the luftikus? Like in the Mishnah, what did it say? Oh, in a Krumbia.
Right, correct. Okay. So this is just saying here that a luvdikus, which we normally said seems to go out with a much harder thing, right? You can go out with something even a little bit less, and apparently the Tosfos tries to explain that it was a little bit of give and take. Sometimes they took the luvdikus out with even a regular halter, and sometimes they want to be more careful. They put in the iron bit. Okay. Now the Gemara says like this: Ketanoi. This whole idea about an animal can be taken out with extra netirusa is a machloket tanoim, and we're going to try to tell you what they are. Here we go. So there's a brisa that they bring down, and the Gemara is going to make it more complicated than it looks like when we read the brisa, which is usually how the Gemara does things, right? So ein achaya yotza b'sugar. So what's a sugar? Sugar, says Rashi. Rashi says the word collar. Okay, collar shel chevel. Okay, what's a collar? Collar is collar. Okay, it's a collar. Okay, believe it or not, you'd have to find the French person. Where's Jonathan? He's not here tonight. Okay, so it's the collar. So you can put a collar, a chaya, can go out with a collar, but it's not like the collar we had before, which was called a shear.
This one's only made out of rope.
Right. Rashi says it's made of rope. Okay, so the one we had for the horse was a type of metal kind of collar. Right, it's not a bit. It's not a bridle. It's not something that's onerous, but it was made of something that was steel or iron. And this looks like it's a collar made of kind of rope. It's a rope collar. Okay, so not a very strong animal that you're probably going to deal with. Right? It looks like an animal of a lesser degree. What, by the way, it's not even a behemoth. What's it called? A chaya. Okay, so it says ein a chaya yotza b'chom b'sugar. So it says really a chaya cannot go out with a sugar. Right? And it's not really clear what kind of animal we're talking about here, which chaya we're talking about. If it's really a wild animal, I'm not sure you want to put a rope around a wild lion, right? That doesn't sound like a good idea. Or a rope around a ferocious wolf, right, or any type of wild animal, right? So we'll have to see what kind of chaya we're talking about. Chananya Omer. Chananya, and this name will come up again in the Gemara, so keep in mind. Chananya says, Yotza b'sugar uvachol davar mishtamer. No, a wild animal, a chaya, can go out with his collar of rope, or anything that will protect, will keep the animal from being watched, it won't escape. So what kind of animal are we talking about? It's a wild animal. We know it's not a docile animal. It's an animal that's probably, if it's wild, it's probably want to get out of there. But my askinan, if we're talking about a big animal, Rashi says kagon dove, like a bear. I'm not sure they had bears in the ancient Israel, in Babylonia, did they? Maybe.
Elisha, remember?
So
Yes, they did. They did, right. They did have dubim. That's correct. They did have dubim. Right, I corrected. Okay. So, but clearly Rashi is referring to his milieu as well. Large, wild, ferocious animals were bears. Okay, so if it's a big wild animal, misagale sugar, you think a rope collar is going to suffice for a bear? Bear will rip it with its claws. Ela b'chaya katana. Must be that we're dealing with a small chaya. So Rashi says chaya katana is nemaya v'chulda. Chulda is a weasel, and nemaya is a marten. It's like a weasel. Okay, it's small little animals, but they're wild. Right, I know weasels are sometimes kept as pets. They're exotic pets, but they're still wild animals. Right, so cats were considered to be much more docile, because we'll just hold on a few lines. We'll come to the cat. Okay, well, any cats.
No, I'm saying there are bobcats. There are wild cats.
Oh, not bobcats. We're talking about domestic cats. Stray cats, right? Okay, alley cats. So the Gemara says, okay, well, it can't be chayik dala, because that's surely not right. Ela b'chayik tana. So the Gemara says, milo sagile sugar. So surely a small animal such as a weasel, wouldn't a rope collar be sufficient for it? Right? What's the chiddush? So the Gemara says, elalav chatol ika benayu. But the difference will be between Chananya and between the first opinion, whether a chaya can go with a sugar, which first opinion the Brisa says it can't, and chaya yotza b'sugar, and Chananya says yes, it can go with this rope collar, is going to be about a chatul. Okay, so a chatul doesn't really require that much kind of watching. Chatul and apparently in this society is a very docile kind of animal, and it doesn't run away. If anyone ever has a cat, they're very hard. They're a different kind of breed than dogs. Sure. It's hard to get close to a cat, but the cat can be domesticated to an extent. Will come back, will be fed, but needs a space to wander around. Right, as you probably know. Nonetheless, it's not considered to be and it's considered a chaya. It was not considered domesticated kind of animal. Domesticated kind of animal, behemoths, by the way, does not mean like pets are not, like a pet dog is not a behemoth. Right? Why not? Because behemoths are really herbivores. Well, they're kosher. They could be kosher or not kosher, but they're really not. They're not predators. Right? For example, a behemoth tamea would be a pig. It's not a kosher animal, but it's clearly not an aggressive kind of predator. They're basically herbivorous, which is why they have split hoofs, which is why they chew their cud. They're sedentary. Okay? But anyway, what I'm trying to say is a behemoth is a domesticated animal, but it's not going to be simply a domesticated animal that's a predatory kind of animal like a dog, which is a dog would be considered a chaya. Even if you kept a dog on your leash, the Chazal would consider it a chaya, I think, for that reason.
But not a chatul. There's a chaya, yes.
But a chatul is considered a chaya,
right?
Correct. A chatul is predatory.
Definitely predatory.
Goes after keeping mice.
There
you go, right?
Those days. Sure.
Correct. So, and it is a predatory kind of animal, but nonetheless, it's not really going to run away. You can make it semi-domesticated. You can train it that it'll stay with you. You can bring it in and so forth. Okay. So therefore, they're saying the difference between the two opinions, whether when it says En Chay Yotza B'Sugar or Chananya says Yotza B'Sugar, what are we really talking about? We're talking about a very specific kind of chaya. Okay, in other words, everybody will agree that a small, tiny animal, such as a weasel, you can keep on a rope. And everybody will agree that a big, ferocious bear, you can't keep on a rope collar. The machloka between the two opinions in this braita, that one says, Ein Chay Yotza B'Sugar, and Chananya says Yotza B'Sugar, is about a cat. And what's the big deal about a cat? The big deal about a cat is a cat does not need a heavy kind of rope collar to become domesticated, to be kept on a leash. Even a thinner kind of collar, even a small kind of rope, which is not called cheva. Cheva means a very thick kind of semen's rope. So therefore, will be sufficient to take care of a chatul. So if you put on the chatul this oversized rope, this big fisherman's rope, right, the thick rope that they use to kind of tie down barges or something, and that's what you put on the chatul. That's the machloket in the Braita. The first opinion says, no, you can't take the cat out with that because it's too much. It's overkill. And overkill, the Tirusi Terta is carrying. Chananya says, not true. The Tirusi Terta is not overkill. It's okay. And therefore, the cat can go out with the sugar, with this heavy, thick rope on its neck, even though it's sufficient with a much thinner rope. Okay, so that's the Gemara explains. Elalav chatul lika benayu. The real topic is about the chatul. Tanakama savar kevan sagile bemisna ba'alma. Seeing that it's enough to us, misna Rashi says is a small, thin kind of rope, like a twine almost. That's sufficient for a cat, so therefore maso here, if you put on the thick sugar for this cat, it's extra. The Chananya sav, and Chananya says, kol netirusi terta lo amina maso here. Chananya says, no, netirusi terta is fine. It's overkill, but that's good. You want to make sure you like the cat, and you want to use this thicker rope, this gesundheit, you can take it for Shabbos.
Which was the basic statement earlier, right?
Which was the basic statement earlier, but here's what we said now. We've now tied it into machloket tanoim.
Right.
Okay, so in other words, we've actually booted this up, if you will, and found a way to tie it into two opinions within a brisa. Now, the tricky part is it's really based upon a diuk within the brisa. Brisa doesn't really talk about it. Brisa talks about chaya. Right. Well, after going through which kind of chaya, we kind of settle on which chaya could it only be? It can only be a chatul. And if it's only talking about a chatul, so what are they arguing about? An overkill rope, or is that good or not? So it's really a diuk within this Braita between Chananya, between the first opinion, the Tanakama, whether the Tirusi or Terta is considered a Masli or not.
Right.
But the key is, after saying all this, Amar Rav Huna bar Chia, Amar Shmuel, halacha ke-Chananya. Okay, the halacha is like Chananya. Okay, so where are we up to right now so far?
He said it's okay.
It's okay. It's okay to have overkill protection on an animal. So if an animal needs a minimalistic kind of bridle or halter, and you put on something much thicker, like a nose ring, and you can take it out on Shabbos. Okay. Now, story time. Levi braid Rav Huna bar Chia, Rabba bar Rav Huna. These two guys, right? Levi braid Rav Huna bar Chia and Rabba bar Rav Huna have a ka'azli be'urcha. They were going along the way. Now, they weren't walking, they were riding their chamorim. And who's the older guy here? So Rabba bar Rav Huna apparently was the more mechubad of the two. So Kadma Chamad Levi lechamad Rabba bar Rav Huna. So the donkey of Levi got ahead of the donkey of Rav Huna. I guess they were trying to walk together, be mechabed each other, and one donkey jumped ahead of the other one. Oh, those donkeys. Right? So Chalash Daite the Rabba bar Rav Huna. So Rabba bar Rav Huna felt very bad because he felt he got disrespected. Felt that Levi was disrespecting him. Of course, Levi wasn't disrespecting him. He just had a bit of a control issue with the chamor. So, and in fact, Tosas points out that there's a certain degree of kavod that you give. First of all, it's a degree of kavod when you come into a house, right? So when you come into a house, that they even say the way that people are walking, the Rav is in the middle and two people accompany him on either side. Right, you can see that sometimes with Hasidic Rebbes. Okay, so when you come to the house, so who goes in first? The Rav goes in first. The guy in the middle guy goes in. That's why it's set up that way. You want to be mechabe the gadol. So and that's an issue that will come up about going into a house. I mean, talking about a house with a mezuzah, a real kind of house, and they try to actually prove it from the three malachim that came to Avram, that Avram spoke to the middle malach, and so to speak, gave him covenant and so forth. So, then Tosa says that even if they're two people are going by themselves, right? It's if they're coming to each other, then maybe there's not kinds of rules of what. If they're not walking together, maybe there aren't rules. But if they're walking together, even if it's not coming to a house, even if it's not going in the door, nonetheless you're supposed to be mechabed, the person who is deserving the greater kavod. So that's what happened. So Levi realized he created a faux pas. So Amar, so he said to himself, Eimale milsa, let me say something. I'll say a Dvar Torah. I'll say a Dvar Torah. I'll make a kind of excuse that I'll settle down Rabba bar Rav Huna. He won't feel so bad. So what does Levi say? So listen, it's actually very cute. Amalei. So he says to Rabbi Bar Huna, Chamor she'asakav ra'im kagon zeh. A chamor that has really bad manners is hard to control. In other words, it's a tough chamor. Can you actually, instead of putting the halter or the collar on this chamor, can you simply put a bit onto it? Right? He asked Rabbi Bar Huna. Now Levi, of course, well, that's what the Mepharshim say. Levi really knew the answer.
Right.
But he was just looking for a way to say to Rabbi Bar Huna, it wasn't me.
Right.
It wasn't me, it was my donkey.
Wild donkey.
Right, so instead of saying it was the donkey, he said, this kind of really wild donkey that you can't control, would it be good for me to put a prombayu on him and take him out on Shabbos? It wasn't Shabbos at that point. So Amalei, so Rabbi Bar Huna said back to who is this, who's speaking to who? To Levi, the son of Rav Huna Bar Chia. Amalei, Hachi Amar Avuch Mishmei de Shmuel. This is what your father, who's his father? This is Levi.
I guess it must be the one there who said...
It was Rav Yehuda. It was Rav Yehuda.
Amar Shmuel. Amar Rav Huna Bar Chia Amar Shmuel.
Where was that?
Right a few lines before. Right before that story about Levi.
Right, oh yes, thank you, yes. So in fact it was Rav Huna Bar Chia, and this was Levi braid Rav Huna Bar Chia, thank you, okay? So he says, Amalei Hachi Amar Avuch Mishmei de Shmuel. This is exactly what your father said in the name of Shmuel, halacha-theory. That the halacha is like Chananya. Okay, so once again, and that's the end of the story. So Rabbi Bar Huna played into the opening statement of Levi braid Rav Huna. Now we have once again a record that Chananya says that the tirusa yeterta is okay, correct? And by the way, just to kind of once again to put this down, just go back to the 4 lines from the end on the previous page, and the Aleph on Beis we just turned over, right? Who says the halacha is like Chananya? It's Rav Huna Bar Chia in the name of Shmuel. So once again, you have Shmuel here, who's coming in as well. So we've got 2 cases Shmuel. One was the case of Shmuel where we're flipping them back and forth, and the other case is where it's possibly like Chananya, which the Tirusi Serta is okay. Okay, now let's go on. What time is it? 9:15. Good. Amalei. Okay, so Tana Devei Menashia. So the Tana of the school Menashia said, this is the Amora, Eiz shechakak lo ben kaneha yotza be'afsar b'Shabbos. So this is an Eiz, is a goat. A goat's a little frisky, correct? So he wanted to be able to put on some kind of collar onto it. Now the problem with goats are, if you put a collar onto it and you don't kind of tie it down well, what's going to happen to the collar? It's going to like goats butt their heads back and forth. Most animals don't do that, so it could come off very easily. So you have this Eiz, you have this goat, and you drill the hole between its horns. What the Mepharshim say means you drill the hole through its horns.
Yeah.
Okay, so you drill a hole through the horns. So yotza ba'afsar b'Shabbos. So you can tie the collar. You can tie not the afsar. You can tie the halter. You tie the halter through the horns, the hole in the horns. Okay, right. So you can go out with an afsar on Shabbos, and we're not concerned that this afsar will come off, and if therefore because you drilled it through. Okay, and if you don't, and the inverse is true. If you didn't drill it through, you cannot send the goat out with an afsar because the concern is the goat will butt it off. And therefore, you'll end up running after the goat and carrying the afsar in a public domain. But if you kind of drilled it through and you kind of take the the pieces of the halter and the leather, you pull it through, then it'll stay there. Boy Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef asked the question to Rav Menashia. Tachav la bezikna mahu. Okay, it's a funny kind of question. Instead of drilling it through the horns. Okay, you take the beard and you turn and you make a knot into the beard. Rashi says, Tochav lo zikna, kosher sa'ar zikna k'min nekev, v'tochav achal b'socho. Kind of think of this as somehow you've got this long billy goat's beard, and you kind of twist it around into a knot, and it's really tightly tied so it can't come out, and you wind the afsar into the billy goat's beard.
So he's asking a question. What happens if you did it that way? Is what he's saying.
Right? Can you take it out on Shabbos? Okay. So once again, you realize that is less. It's less likely to hold the goat,
Absolutely.
Right, and more likely to come off than when you put it through the horns. The horns are not going to come off.
No.
Right, but ostensibly the concern is here that the goat is for the goat to take off this halter, it's going to hurt a lot. Right, goat can't get rid of the horns, so the horns ain't going nowhere. But every time the goat will try to butt off this halter, right, it's going to yank on the beard. And that's got to be fairly painful. Those of us who have beards or have ever had your hair yanked when you were youngin', so to speak. Okay. So tachav lo bezikno mahu kevan di manachle koivle. Seeing that if it were to butt its head, in other words, it would jump up and down, as if to say to knock it off its head. Koivle. So it's going to hurt the goat very much. As lo asilin tucha, it's not going to kind of knock the halter off. Odilma zimnin the rafi v'nafil. Maybe sometimes it'll get loose. The knot on the beard will get loose v'nafil, and the goat will be able to get it off. It'll fall off. And you'll end up carrying this halter and running after the goat, and you'll be carrying it carrying the halter 4 amos in Rishus Harabim. So Gemara says take it. We don't really have an answer for that. Okay, interesting question, but no real practical ramifications we can determine. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
I was going to say when the Mashiach deals with. I mean, when Rabbi,
he'll answer this one too. Correct.
This was the take. Hopefully, this will be one of the lower.
Well, right, correct. Okay, but these are questions that they ask many times, and sometimes they could prove it, sometimes they didn't. So it's not unusual. It's not really. I know Teiku stands for Tishbi Taris Kushas for Bios, but sometimes the Gemara runs into a dead end. Okay. Here we go. Next question. Tanan Hasam. We learned, and this is going to be the Mishnah. It's actually a Mishnah in 2 blot on the Daled Amud Beis. V'lo bertzua shebein karneha, that a cow cannot go out with a strap that was put between its 2 horns. Okay, and the now what is the strip there for? Okay, why is the strip put there for? What do you think? You have a cow. Cow's a longhorn. It's got horns.
Again,
right. So the Gemara is going to suggest it could be one of 2 things. One thing it could be to get control. Right? You can't hold a cow by its horns. A little more difficult. But if between the horns you have this rope or this strap, so to speak, you could grab it. It's also possible that it was meant to decorate the cow. Okay. You can. Could be identified, though. I think in the cases here, it's more of an accessory to beautify the cow. For example,
you could have his name on it. He's right.
You could have his name, right? You could have his name, but it's detachable. It's probably not the place you want to brand the cow. Right. In other words, it's like today when they put those the vehicle numbers, they put them in hidden places where you're not going to find it.
Yeah.
They put it because they know the crooks will cut off the VIN where they can actually see it on the door.
Yeah, no, this was like you just said, to beautify. Take him out for a walk
Right.
on Shabbos. He has his name. And what's the idea?
The reason cows were branded, right? Or the branding was either on the ear, or the back of the ear, many times, was because that wasn't. I guess you could cut off, but that would raise all kinds of hackles. Or it was branded on the actual cow itself because it was indelible. Okay. And at any rate, so it's probably more logical, and those are the examples of the Gemara. It's meant to beautify. For example, we talk about when they would come. The picture in Mishnah, is it Maisos, Maisos Sheni, when they would come to Yerushalayim, or Bikurim, it's Bikurim maybe, and they would bring the Bikurim, and they had the cow pulling the Bikurim, and they had all kinds of decorations on his horn, gold on the horn, gold inlay. So in other words, you want to make, this is your cow, okay? Think of it as the frilly kinds of collars you see these people put on their dogs. Okay, so that could be for noise. So the Gemara says like this.
But it's starting. This is a quotation from somewhere else.
Right. It's talking about the cow. It's on Nundal and Beis. It's the last mission of the parak.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a whole thing about what animals cannot go out with. Okay, so the Mishnah we had talked about what animals could go out with, and then the last Mishnah talks about what's on the bad list. Okay, so the cow cannot go out with this ritzua ben karneha. So the question is, what is it there for? So Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Pligi bar Rav Shmuel. Says Machlokas Rav Shmuel. Notice who's coming up here once again. Our good friend Shmuel. Okay, Charamar bein lanoi bein l'shemer aser. So one, we don't know who's who. That's not, by the way, not uncommon that we have Rav and Shmuel, Charamar this and Charamar that. Sometimes we know who's who, and in fact the Gemara will prove or try to prove which of the two people said which. But here we know that these two guys said, they argued, and one said this and one said that. By the way, the reason that this happens in the Gemara many times for Rav and Shmuel is they're the oldest generation of Amoraim. Rav is a transition generation at the end of Tanoim into the Amoraim. Sometimes the Gemara says Rav Tanahu Polig. They even say he's got the status still of a Tana from the Mishnah. He's really the first generation Amoraim, and Shmuel is a bit of a younger contemporary, but still the beginning. So as they go through it, the older Machlokim probably passed on. These two guys had a Machlokus. One said this, one said that. You can understand that. So Charamar bein l'noi bein l'shemer aser, v'charamar l'noi aser l'shemer mutar. So one opinion is that for whether it's for beautification or whether it's to protect it, it's aser. And one said, no, for noi it's aser, for shemer it's permissible, even though really for a cow, this was considered additional nitirusa. Okay? Those apparently, I don't know how they would take the cows, but I'm sorry, the other way around. If you say, okay, let me try it again. The rope between the horns was considered, if it's for watching it, it's considered netirus yaterta, because apparently there must have been some kind of collar around the cow that they could hold on to. Right, this thing between the horns was an additional kind of netirusa. So one opinion says no. What you cannot really do is neither for noi, because that's no purpose, and not even for shemer, for watching it, because that's considered netirusa yaterta, and that's not, and therefore that's considered prohibited. You cannot use netirusa yaterta. And the other one says, l'noi aser l'shemer mutar. And the other opinion says, no, for noi you can't do it, because it doesn't really serve a purpose. But l'shemer, to watch the cow, that's okay, because even though this is an extra horn, there's an extra technique to hold the cow, because you have the normal collar, nonetheless, netirusa yaterta is lav masui, and you can carry it on Shabbos. You can go out with it on Shabbos.
But so far they hadn't said that the reason is because it's Yaterta or not, right? So far they just said one says yes and one says no.
Right.
But didn't say give the reason, actually.
Correct. Correct.
I think you're adding...
I'm adding basically.
What's the real reason.
I'm adding what the real reason is, and you'll see in a moment it's going to bring Chananya into it and so forth. Okay, and it really comes back to Netirus Yaterta. But right, and Rashi points out right on the place that it's that on a para. Rashi says a para can be held without a grasp thing. You simply lead it in front of it. Malicha lefanav. These cows were very docile. They weren't going anywhere. You had a cattle prod at best. You did not need to schlep the cow. Okay, of all the animals, these were very docile. So therefore, putting this additional thing between the horns may be an additional kind of netirusa, but it's netirusa yaterta. Okay, so it's not me. It's really the Gemara, and it's based on Rashi. So the bottom line is clearly the opinion that says that you can go out with this is going to say Netirus Yaterta is okay. The one that says you can't go out with this L'Shemer is going to say Netirus Yaterta is going to be prohibited. Okay, now the Gemara now is going to try to prove who says what. Okay, now we'll just do a few more minutes and we'll have to kind of break here, but just to know where we're going to go. The purpose now of this Gemara is to prove who says what. And if we can prove which opinion Shmuel says, we're going to then tie it back into the Shmuel we had the page before. Okay, let's try to just think a little bit more here. So, because this piece of Gemara is going to go on to about the two dots. So, Amar Rav Yosef, Testaim the Shmuel hu de Amar l'noi aser l'shemer mutar. Let's prove that Shmuel is the one who says l'noi aser and l'shemer mutar, which would mean that Shmuel would say Netirus Yaterta is okay. Which is the Amar Rav Huna Barid Barchia Amar Shmuel, because we just had on the page before 4 lines in the bottom, right? When that's what exactly the two guys on the chamor, one said to the other. They said, what? Halacha ke Hananya. The halacha is like Hananya. What did Hananya say? That you can take the cat out on the big fat rope because Netirusi Tirta is okay. Okay, so it looks like Shmuel is the one who says Netirusi Tirta is lav masoi. Okay. So Amalei Abaye Adraba. No, the other way around. This time the Shmuel Hodamar Bein Lenoi Bein L'Shem Asa. No, maybe Shmuel says the other way. Then the Tirusi Tirta is considered a Masa. He can't go out. How do we know? The Amrav Yehuda Mar Shmuel, because we had the first case we had earlier on was when they went to Rebbe. And who said that question? Machlifin Lefnei Rebbe Shozu Bezu. What happens if you flip one before? Mahu. Right. So Amar Lefon of Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yosi Kachamar Abba Dalad Behemos Yotza Bavsar Asus Aper Vagama Vachamar. And they said, Lav lamute gamal b'chotam. Does this not exclude a gamal in an overkill? And that's as far as it goes. And the Gemara then rejected that answer. But at this point, the Gemara doesn't bring the rejection. But if you stop here, and that looks like the part that Shmuel is trying to accede to, it looks like Shmuel would agree that gamal b'chotam is going to be not included because that's considered an overkill. It's Netirusa, it's actually Netirusa. Okay, you want to go a little further? Guys with me? Stay with me? Yes? Okay. So, I think we can do it. So Gemara says, Sami ha mikame ha. No, you got, one is wrong. Okay, we're going to take out this, we're going to take out the second one and leave the first Shmuel, and we're going to say Shmuel really didn't say this question here. How come you're kind of removing one and not the other? We have one opinion seems to say, one story says that Shmuel says like Hananya that Netirusi Tirta is good to watch it. It's okay to go out with it. The other one seems to say the other one. Why did you take one in place of the other? So the Gemara says, because Rav Chia bar Av Amar Rav I'm sorry, I skipped line. Ha da Ashkechan Shmuel hu diamar lenoi asa l'shemer mutar, because we found a place that Shmuel says that his shemer is permissible, that Netirusi Tirta is okay to go out. The Itma Rav Chia bar Ashi Amar Rav. We have a statement. Rav Chia bar Ashi says the name of Rav bein lenoi bein l'shemer asar, and Rav Chia bar Av Amar Shmuel lenoi asa l'shemer mutar. So we have a statement, black on white, that what does Shmuel say? So we're going to say, therefore, that we know Shmuel says. No one argued about that. Right. So let's plug it back into the case about being the cow with the ritzua. What will Shmuel say? He'll say l'shemer is going to be mutar because Netirusi Tirta is okay. In the same way that he says it here. Now, what about the case in the previous Amud where they came before Rebbe and it looks like Shmuel seems to say the other thing around? So there's two. So the Gemara doesn't really address that, but the two answers the Gemara, the Rishonim say, one is, first of all, there's one more line to the Gemara. The Gemara rejected that proof. They said it doesn't teach me to exclude Gamal the Avsar. It comes to exclude actually Naka. Doesn't come to exclude Gamal Bechotam. It comes to exclude Naka Avsar. So the proof itself was knocked off. Second of all, we don't really know what Shmuel said. We wanted a proof in that case that Shmuel asked the question that we asked Rebbe going back and forth. We don't know what Shmuel's real opinion was. We don't even know what Rebbe's real opinion was. So there's too much silence here to prove that this is Shmuel. So what are we left with? We're left with the following, and this is the conclusion of the Gemara. We're left that Shmuel says on the bottom of Nun Aleph Amud Bet that the halacha is like Hananya, which we understand to be talking about the cat, which is Netirusi Tirta, and therefore Netirusi Tirta is okay to go out with on Shabbos. We're left with a statement by Rav Chia bar Av and Amar Shmuel L'noi asa l'shemer mutar, to prove the Shmuel is the one that says L'noi asa l'shemer mutar. That's another one that says therefore that Shmuel says Netirusi Tirta is okay. And the only one that's left in the muddled is the flipping in front of Rebbe, which Shmuel is really silent, Rebbe is silent, everybody is unclear what they really hold, and therefore that's the one Sami ha mikami ha. So in the end of this Gemara, okay, in the end of the Gemara, and we can stop here because the question is really just a side question. In the end of the Gemara comes to the conclusion that Netirusi Tirta is okay, is not considered a masoy. Better to have too much. If you have something that's not sufficient, that won't work. Right? Now, there are variations on that. So, for example, we saw that the one exception to the rule is the luvdikus. Luvdikus needs a bit, but we saw there was a brisa that said that the luvdikus sometimes they got away with having an avsar, depending on what they had available. So there is some kind of gray, but some things are clearly overkill, okay. Underkill is going to be a big problem in Shabbos.
And you just quoted too, Dima Rab Chia Bar Amar Rav. No, was it Rabbi? Who was it? It was Rabbi.
Right.
No, the Rav Chia.
But we're more concerned, the Gemara is more concerned about Shmuel, which means that's the way we're passing. When you look at how the Gemara stock works, it works according to the way the halacha of the Gemara is. We'll stop here. Good, I'm glad we got to finish that. Okay. So now when you go out with your camels, you're okay.
I tell you. Always a little extra is a good idea.